Hello everyone, I'm Les Burnham, CEO of Stilo, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all here to our first webinar in the 2014 Dita Knowledge Series. This series will feature a mix of presentations from leading consultants, custom case studies and demonstrations, and we're going to be kicking off things today with a presentation by Pamela Noreault of ACI. For those of you who don't know ACI, they're a world leader, well, a market leader in banking and payment software products with over 4,000 employees scattered the world in offices in key locations throughout the world. Just before introducing to Pam, I'd like to cover off one or two housekeeping points, if I may, in our usual way. All these will be muted for the duration of the webinar, and questions can be submitted throughout using the chat in the meeting window. If you can address them to Helen Owens, please. Helen's our marketing manager who's facilitating things behind the scenes today. And we'll look to address those questions in a Q&A session at the end. And just as a reminder, we'll be running a poll at the end of the session to gather feedback on today's webinar. We do appreciate this feedback very much, and would appreciate it if you could spend a little bit of time, 2 or 3 minutes, just filling in a short questionnaire at the end. And also just let you know that today's webinar has been recorded, and afterwards we'll send a link of this, all of those people who registered for today's session, along with a sort of a PowerPoint presentation, a copy of the slide set as well. So that's it on the housekeeping side. Now back to Pam. I'd like to introduce, and firstly, Pam, thank you very much for volunteering your time today. It's much appreciated. But many already know Pam, I'm sure you do, if you're used to going to Dita conferences. As a senior user experience content specialist at ACI, where she's been really participating in a major Dita implementation project over the last 2 years or so, I think I'm right saying. She's got over 20 years of experience in content management, content conversion and technical writing. An MA in English and writing. She's a regular and I know a very popular presenter at conferences. And she also teaches technical communications courses to local college students in her spare time. And I know from first-hand experience, she combines all this with a very enthusiastic, can-do approach to the implementation of major projects. Today, Pam's going to share with us some of her experiences at ACI on the topic of converting legacy content to Dita. It's not science. So, welcome again, Pam, and over to you.
Thanks, and welcome everybody to today's webinar. And let's get the party started, as I'd like to say. We've got a couple objectives that we're going to go through today, and the first one is it's not rocket science. It seems like it, but it's not. So I'll talk a little bit about content conversion approach, best practices, some tips and tricks, and at least we'll save some time for Q&A. That's kind of the roadmap that we're going to go by today, and bear with me as we go. Just so everybody on the webinar is aware of what we've done at ACI or in the process of doing. We've got about 85,000 pages of content. Our content is basically all over the map. It's every piece of software, authoring software that a lot of writers use. Framer, Word, AuthorIt, RoboHelp, and we've got some HTML as well. So we were looking for obviously a common ground, a common tool set, and hence we moved to Dita so that this would be the only conversion that we make going forward. So operation, because it is so big, it did require us to plan, to track, and we are migrating and executing our migration during our software development life cycle. So we are, the boss continue to roll. We still have projects to deliver. And so we're trying to do this in tandem, which is not so easy to do, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Hopefully give everybody out there some ideas of what we've done, what we've decided to do, and hopefully you get some takeaways to bring back into your organization. We did, our operation was planned once we got our CCS deployment completed. We were in the process of going to a consistent tool set, and that tool set involved an authoring tool, obviously, and a content management system. And of course, you have to get your content into that management system. The last piece of the pie was no translation was required. We aren't translating currently. It would cost us a fortune to do so, considering that our content is in so many places and in so many different states and templates and whatnot. Factors in the play. We have documentation teams at 4 sites. We have a site in Boston, a site in Charlotte, a site in Omaha, and a site in Cape Town. We have 23 total writers. No, I didn't do this alone, and there's no way I could have done it alone. I can't take credit for a lot of the planning. I can take credit for helping guide. I can take credit for saying it's possible, for saying that I've done it before, that we can do it, that we'll make it, and for some planning and organization. But the bottom line is I had a fabulous team behind me supporting this effort from top up and also from bottom up. The writers believed in this. They continue to believe in this. They know it's not an easy road that we've gone down, that we're embarking on, but they've embraced the journey, and it's, you know, we're on the move. We started with our conversion requirements. We tried to get some requirements down. Regardless of where you go and what you do, you have to have a starting point. So we worked with the management and our team to discuss, okay, what are those things that we have to have? We definitely wanted to convert our content quickly and as cost effectively as possible. That's probably safe to say for all businesses. We did automate our conversion in any way that we possibly could. Our bus continues to roll. We are delivering projects and all this, and so automation is a good thing for us. To avoid manual processes when we could, when it was possible. We realized that, you know, in a perfect world, wouldn't it be great to press a button and have it go? We wanted to make the process repeatable. Actually, for 23 writers, we've added one in the last month. So again, it was a pattern, being able to from start to finish and to repeat that pattern and to tweak that pattern as we go. Control the conversion, track it, report it, so people could see where it was, where we were going, and how much we had left. So some of the requirements that we put in place to make. I mean, ultimately, we wanted a tool that would automate our data conversion. We needed a tool that was cloud-based. Our company prefers cloud-based tools. They want to bring anything in on-premise. So we're looking down that road. We need a tool that puts conversion time in our control. In other words, we weren't going to hand it off to a third party and have them rework our content when they were the experts in our content. That works for some companies. It wasn't going to work for our company. So our ultimate decision was to go with Stilo Migrate. What I would tell you as you go down this path is I would tell you to look at what's out there. I would tell you to get your requirements in place, and I tell you to think about what your business need is and what fits your business need, and then make your decision on ultimately on how you're going to get to where you need to be. And of course, I'm sure that as in all businesses, money plays into this as well. Approach. How do we go about once we chose Stilo? What was our approach? It was to get our source content into templates. Now we had them into templates, but you have to understand that ACI as a company acquires companies quite often, and we lot of content that was in a lot of different templates. Although those templates may have been consistent in their own right, there was still quite variation out there. So we really wanted to get our source content into one set of consistent templates, narrow it down, and then have a great rules for each template that we had. In other words, a template for audit, a template for Word, more than one template for FrameMaker. Some of the companies we've acquired had their own templates in FrameMaker. Rule set for all of our different source inputs. And what we did is we tried to find a document that was really going to be representative of what we were trying to do, and then run that test document through each rule set and work to tweak the rule set until our output, the data on the other side, was satisfactory. It doesn't meet our needs. Is it going to go into our CMS easily? And when we press the button to generate our PDF or our help system or whatever output is, it will come out without doing a lot of rework. So those are all the things we were thinking about here. So what we did after that is, after we got our test documents run through our rule sets and we tweaked our rule sets until they were satisfactory. That's almost an ongoing thing, by the way, because every new document or every document sometimes tends to bring some new things that you didn't account for. But we created a pre-conversion checklist, and all those things that we needed to do to content before we ran it through Migrate to get it to DITA. So a list of things that we need to, clean up, basically, that were embedded, that were in the wrong format, that weren't sized correctly. I mean, I can go on and on. A lot of legacy content going on here. So we created a post-conversion checklist. In other words, okay, we got our data back. Here are the things you need to check before you go and push it into our CCMS. So there is, we tried to tweak that list to be minimal and to really check for the biggest things that we really need to look for and change. I will tell you up front that our pre-conversion checklist is bigger than our post. We prefer to get our work done and get it as good as we can get it prior to converting, and then minimal work on the back side. Last but not least, we planned and execute the migration, which we are currently in the middle of, and that's what's going on right now. So let's talk about the best practices. Some of the things that we've done, that we've found, and in my history of doing data conversions, which are very, very helpful. And hopefully all of you out there will take some of these things back into your organization. If you haven't done these things already, it's a good plan of action, regardless of whether you're going to migrate your content to another format, whether it be FrameMaker, whatever it is. You need to think about starting with getting a content baseline. You've got to get your arms around the repository of content that you have, the format that the content is in, the number of pages that content is in, the template that's associated with it, whether it's got screenshots and graphics in them and all sorts of things like that. So we started there. We started creating and made a content baseline, so we knew exactly what we were dealing with here, what we were going to move forward with, what we were going to leave and let go and let behind and not do anything with and not update again. We really got that in order for us. So that's the first order of this. It really let us know that we had 85,000 pages that we needed to convert to DITA, just so you know where that number came from. Okay. We did test the conversion process to establish our conversion page estimate. That was just for budgetary reasons, right? We had to budget as best as we could to determine how much it was going to cost us, not only in time, but fuel, to our content from where it was today to where it needs to be. And so we tested that conversion process to get a conversion page estimate. So our writers could go back and we could put a plan together, which I'll talk about this at the bottom of the page here, put a plan together on how much time it was going to take to convert said content, how we were going to plan it out, and how we were going to execute it. So we did a conversion page estimate. That's from start to finish. That's taking a typical document, doing the pre-conversion work on it, get through the tool and doing all of the post-conversion work on it, and then getting it into the CCMS, okay? And then we base the rest of those estimates on our initial estimate. Now, I will tell you that we are just, again, in the midst of doing a migration, and we are refining these estimates as we found that, either in some cases they're shorter, and in other cases the estimates need to be longer. It depends on where the source comes from and how many screenshots and all sorts of different things, but we have refined, and we will continue to refine our estimate. Works. Our next step was to get agreement on the hours that you can devote to content migration per week, per quarter, per year. We went back to the business. We've got a bus that's rolling. We've got projects to deliver, and we have to figure out how to migrate all of our content, and figure out how many hours that our writers can devote to migration, considering all of the other work that they have on their plates. It is not to say that, the writers, there's no expectation that team members would be working nights, weekends, and, months on end tirelessly to get this done. It was planned and executing against that plan. So we went back to our management team and said, we seriously, the only way that all of this is going to happen in the time frame, in the different time frames that we've mapped out, is that we need to have a percentage of time this year and next year to complete the effort that we have. And then we can get that into our schedule with all of the projects that are in flight, and really get a true picture of how long we're talking about to get this migration done, what's top priority and what's not. Which brings me right to the next bullet, which was really content to convert. And that's what we had our teams do. We had teams and we said, what highest priorities that we hear? Which content should go first? Which content should go second? Which content should go third? We have 3 buckets, priority 1, 2, and 3. And how do we determine priorities? It's probably different for every company. But the way we did it was that we had a couple of things. Load statistics that I pulled from our repository, so we know which documents customers in the past year, since last March, were down. Okay. If customers are downloading our content, that's the content that they're using most. Therefore, that should be a top priority. So had that information. The second piece of information was the products themselves. What projects to be done in 2014 and what will be done in 2015? And of course, it gets a little fuzzy after that. And priorities change project-wise. We all know that. That's the reality of business. But so projects that we had scheduled this year, they took a higher priority as well. Okay, so we had the download statistics. We had the priority of the projects that were going to be in flight in 2014, 2015, and last but not least, not only did we look at those projects, we looked at what they set in the revenue generation model for the business. Which products bring the most money for the business? And those 3 statistics in and of themselves were the reasons we prioritized our content as 1, 2, or 3. So, take that back, think about that with your own business, your own company, and figure out, prioritize that. Conversion based on priority, the budget, and the budget meaning the budget within the project to absorb some migration time, okay? And then what we did is actually created a huge spreadsheet, and for the ACI developers that are on the phone, they're probably having a big laugh right now, or a cry, but this spreadsheet is a huge spreadsheet, and basically it's got all the prios for all the content. It's quarterly dates as to when content should be converted based on project schedule, and it's got owners assigned to those documents and when they need to be converted. And we are tracking it. We are actively tracking the conversion, estimates versus actuals, and using differences as we should. Pages converted per month versus total pages that we have to convert. So getting a burn down chart of where we started and where we're, as we're moving along, which is a good thing. So we're seeing progress, and I think that's the biggest thing that's important. As you get a project that is this big, and it can be overwhelming to people, to the readers and to your company's readers, as they feel, gosh, how is this going to happen? How do we make this happen? How do we take all of the content that we have in so many different sources and so many different formats and get to where we need it to be? It may be painful, it may be time consuming, but it's worth it in the end to split and to track it. The best things that we ever did. So some tips and tricks for on really. So I'm switching gears right now. So I went from best practices as how to plan it, organize it, execute it, to the tips and the tricks. So here's some things that we've learned along the way. But before we decided to get into our model, we did complete our data topic model. All right, we completed it, so our readers were going to know, here's our topic model. Here are the data elements that we are going to use. Here's what they're used for. We rolled out data training, so they all had fundamentally an idea of what data was about, what the code was going to look like, and that sort of thing. And we also rolled out all of our CCMS training prior to doing our migration as well. So, hopefully, it gives the writers a bigger picture of, okay, here's where we need to be, here's where we're going, and here's what our topic model looks like, so I can focus on getting our content to where it needs to be. We work up front, so our data output is better, it's consistent, it's more consistent than what it would be. There's less cleanup on the back side. Also, if you're looking at an automation tool of sorts that you're purchasing or is cloud-based, obviously a cloud-based tool is going to charge you for that content that you convert, so you're better off cleaning it up in the front rather than after the fact. We use templates with common tagging. So if you're using a Word template, we use common tags in our templates, FrameMaker as well. And we kind of eliminated, along the way, some FrameMaker templates had gotten really out of hand where, we had people adding their own tags and whatnot. So we tried to consolidate as much as possible. Make the topic-based as much as you can, of course. The topic is a topic-based model. And if you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole during your conversion, your results may not be fabulous, spectacular, and they might be less than what you thought they would be. If you haven't, you should make your headings consistent, because during the conversion process, your headings are key as to topic typing. In other words, it'll analyze whether the topic is a concept, a task, or and things can help do that. help the tool do that. Linear content references, things like see the table on the next page or see the graphic on the previous page, those sorts of things. Because who knows, as you split your content into topics, those linear content references don't apply anymore. Not only that, they'll help you when you go to publish to other formats and single source, because you're sharing content. It will really limit your content reuse if you've got the linear content references in your topics. We deleted inline cross-references. If they impede the content reuse, then we got rid of them. We did delete content and graphics that aren't needed. In some cases, we had gratuitous graphics, and we had graphics that weren't necessary, so we decided that, okay, now's a good time not to have them in there. Some cleanup on that front with the content up front. So let me move on. So after we got, those are some tips and tricks, we'll move on to talking about the conversion checklist and what we did here to help speed up our conversion and to get more consistent output. And regardless of the path you choose, these checklists, you probably do them, even if you're doing a manual conversion or you're having a third party do it. Whatever you choose, this is most helpful because we went for each one of our templates. And we made a list of items that we must change prior to conversion. And we update and we refine that process and that list as we go. So as we find things, as we do other documents, our writers have been really diligent about updating that list, or at least sending me an email going, oh man, I ran into this and blah, 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 and thinking that I need to update the list with this to help everybody out. And I'm like, yeah, you really do. Let's get it on the list. The post-conversion checklist, it really will depend on how your content comes out. You may only need one, you may need more than one, depending on what your output looks like. But it's a list of what you got to verify and fix once the conversion is completed. And we do the same thing here. We update this list and we refine this process as we go. And we continue to get better as we go through this. Now, if you ask me where we're at in this process of migration, in earnest, we started our migration effort in October, and we really started hitting it home in January, February, and we are in full swing right now going into March. And so right now we are at the height of updating our conversion checklists, and we are at the height of refining and looking at our estimates to see how well we've done and what we need to make the business aware of. So the last piece of this is the metrics. Really, we report our conversion progress on purpose. We do the business knows that we are using time wisely, that we are using our CMS wisely, that we are grateful for the tools that we've put in place, but we're really trying to give back to the organization to tell them, hey, we're making progress. We are doing what we said we'd do. We're documenting our page estimate versus our actuals. We're documenting the pages converted versus pages, and we are doing this on a monthly basis, the converted versus total. We are reporting on the planned pages versus the pages actually converted, and we are also reporting on the conversion variances. And what do I mean by variances? Okay, so we said we'd do this month. Here's what we actually did. There's a variance in there and they don't match. Well, why is that? Is it because a project got a project got pushed out, or did we not get started on time? What happened in there? And usually it's just project priority shift. the release cycle gets changed, date shift. So we document those variances so when we report to that upper level management, they understand that the bus is moving, the bus is changing, and we are keeping up with that change as best we can. However, each counts and what we're doing are changing because the priorities are changing within the business to be more adaptive to what we're trying to deliver. So business is aware that we are flexible as we can be, and we are still trying to report against what we said we'd do and when we said we'd do it. Okay. Actually, at the end, and I finished really early, which is good because then we have some time for some questions. This is more my personal information. If you care to get hold of me, an ACI Worldwide email there for you. I also have a personal Gmail address if you're interested in sending me some questions or something that's not business. You can follow me on Twitter if you care to, and you can find me on LinkedIn.
Full of just great tips and tricks and good advice for everyone. So I think in the course of the presentation, I wanted to questions raised. So Helen, can you just put this to Pam, please?
I can indeed, yep. First question, Pam, was can you describe the DITA training that the writers received? Was it tailored to them or out of the box? And did you bring in any outside consultants to provide the training in-house? Part to that, is there anything that you would have done differently if you had to do it again?
That was loaded. All right. Yeah. Man. Okay.
Half an hour.
All right. Shoot straight. So let's take them one at a time. So Helen, if you do me a big favor and start with number one, I'll answer that one and we'll go right through the list.
Can you describe the DITA training that the writers received? Yes,
absolutely. Okay. So the DITA training that the writers received was in-house training that I developed. We split it up into, and what I tried to do is, because our writers are all over the world, we did it via WebEx, and it was as interactive as I could possibly make it. I had exercises for them to do, questions for them to answer, and I really just started with the basics, what's a topic, what's a concept, and then we went on to maps, and then we went on to content reuse. So we really, each module built upon one another and recorded these modules, so we have them on file, and any new writers that come on board can take this of modules.
Covered most of those questions. The last part to that really was there anything that you would do differently if you had to do it again?
That I would do differently if I had to do it again. On-site training is always awesome, but when you have a distributed team, it's impossible. And most companies won't pay for the travel arrangements. But from that being said, if I worked in an office where all my writers were centrally located, I definitely would have done it in a classroom environment. That would have been beneficial. The second piece of that question, something else that I would have done differently if we had had the opportunity, is more of a hands-on approach as much as we could if we had the tools. We did the DITA training right prior to purchasing our tool set. So we were doing exercises and anything that I could think of that didn't involve actually using an authoring tool.
Pam, another question was, can you provide some examples of DITA topic models, please?
So basically what we did for the DITA topic model is we determined which elements we were going to use and what they were going to be used for, and we kept it simple. So we did one for a task, one for a concept, and we did one for a reference. And basically the task is really our most important one, and the concept was pretty important too. But really just the short description. We define, the command. Yes, we're going to do UI control. What are all the elements that we're going to do and what we use them for? So not only do we have a sample data task topic that somebody can reference, we also have a table that said, here are elements that we're going to use on the left side. And they start from top to bottom. They get smaller right down to an attribute. And then on the right side was just a description of when you would use them.
Okay. Another question. What do you do about content such as, like following example, must be converted?
Correct, Ron. So the question is, what type of content did we convert?
Yeah, I think it's along that sort of lines. Was there any content that you felt was superfluous, I guess?
Yeah, the content that we chose not to convert were things like products that we've sunsetted, are what we call in maintenance mode. In other words, we still have to support them to some degree with bug fixes, but we are not actively selling the said products, nor are we actively doing new features for them. Some of those instances, we read the doc set, but we continue to do some release notes, and we continue to do the U.S. standards that we are required to do to make sure that they're satisfactorily meet U.S. law.
Question for you. How did you plan for content reuse during the conversion process?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting, that's something that we punted on, to be fair and honest. Our goal was to get the content into the content management system, and if a writer is working on that content on a project, and as that content went into the system, then to determine the reuse of it. So I'll tell you that that's probably one of the things that will come in the future. That's not something we're doing a whole lot of right at the moment.
Sort of connected questions, I guess. One was how much or how big the converted documentation was. So how many pages have been or are being converted. Slightly linked to that, what percentage of your total content will end up in DITA?
Okay. So 85,000 pages total that we're going to migrate to DITA. And right now, at last count, and off the top of my head, 3 weeks ago, we were sitting at about 3,000 pages converted. We are aiming to have 20,000 at the end of year one converted. And again, these numbers are coming off the top of my head, but I think I'm fairly close. And part of that question, I'm sorry.
And what percentage of your total content will end up in DITA?
The percentage of the total content that will end up in DITA is probably close to about 75 to 85%. That's a guess. What we're behind really is deemed, non-essential.
Jen, what tools did you decide on to use DITA?
So the tools that we decided to use for DITA, any of the authoring tools, they're all fairly similar and all work fairly the same. It's really going to boil down to what your writers are most comfortable with. We had a set of writers using Oxygen. We had a set of writers using. And then when we bought our CCMS, the bridge that came with it happened to be XMetal. So we've all migrated to using XMetal. Our CCMS is SDL and Live Architect, and the reason we went with Live Architect, not the sole reason, there's plenty of reasons, but one major reasons, again, is it is a cloud-based solution for us. They do run in the cloud. They do run on-premise, too. We have such a team that's so widely distributed that really needed a system that was going to be available 24/7, that wasn't kind of dependency on our, our ACI data center or infrastructure for maintenance purposes. So that's why we chose that route. Again, do your requirements, and then you get to choose what works best for you.
Okay. Questions for you, Pam. One was, how long did the pre-conversion take on average?
The pre-conversion it really depends on the content in the document and where it came from. We have some of our contents in better shape than other pieces of our content. So in some cases it goes relatively quickly, and in other cases it goes not so quickly. So really, it really depends on the content and where it came from. Some of our legacy stuff, it's 3 days, 4 days of cleanup. Some of the stuff that's relatively new, it's just 1 or 2 days of cleanup. That kind of gives you an idea. It really depends on the source.
Question for you. What is the greatest segment of ROI you are seeing or anticipate seeing from the conversion?
So the biggest ROI that we will see from the conversion is we will finally have a team of 23 writers that can share projects and share and content across the team. We have automated style enforcement that they can run. We'll have a review process that's a little more sleek, but the publishing process gets a little simpler too. Our writers stop focusing on layout and they start focusing on content, on producing good content. The layout's controlled by the publishing engine. They hit a and they publish what they need to publish. So that's where we're really going to see our gain. And from ROI perspective for our customers, they will see finally consistent layout between all of our content across our entire company. All the same look, all the same feel. They will see consistency that they haven't always seen before. And not only that, our content will be of a higher quality because of that consistency.
Thank you very much, Pam. I think we've finished the questions. If I may, before wrapping up the session, I'll just a little quick promo of just so for those of you who don't know us, we're a public listed company. We specialize in content conversion. One of our products for which we're very well known is OmniMark, which is a developer's tool. We started developing Migrate some 6 or 7 years ago, and we've now something like helped our customers convert. Yes, there's more than 500,000 pages actually of content data. We can convert frame, InDesign, Word, Rubber Help, work as well, and other XML formats to DITA. You see on the bottom of the screen there a selection of our customers. So people like IBM sort of the system. VMC with 5 or 6 conversion portals. Large customers converting tens of thousands of pages, and also small customers who just have a few thousand pages of content to convert. We use Migrate. And if you're interested in just doing a sample conversion, you can go to our website. At the top of the home page, there's a link where you can upload a sample document, say 20 or 30 pages. We'll convert that for you free of charge and review the results with you, and let you keep those results so that you can get a sense of how your content might look in DITA, and it's a good starting point. So feel free to do if you wish. And I would like to wrap today's session. Thank Pam once for a great presentation. You just are so much aware of the amount of knowledge and experience that goes into making a presentation like that. And thanks, Pam. That's much appreciated for sharing that with us. In terms of upcoming events, you can see Stilo later this week at the Intelligent Content in San Jose. We'll be there over the next few days. We'll be demoing Migrate in about another month's time, showing a Word to DITA conversion. And then another facilitator, Joanne Hackos, will be presenting on the topic of managing reusable content in the product development lifecycle. And I think that next time out for Pam is probably CMS Data North America, Pam, if Annette presenting someplace before that.
I am not. I will be at the Data North American Conference, though, and I am presenting.
So that would be great, and I'm sure that if any listeners are actually at the conference, it would be great if they could see you out there and maybe ask follow-up questions at the conference. So really, that brings us to an end of today's session. I'd like to thank everyone for attending. I appreciate it. If you can take time just to fill out the questionnaire at the end, we would appreciate it. And thanks again. Appreciate very much the work you put into this and for volunteering to share the knowledge.